I have a profound reverence for life. Well, I want to save your life.
I have to respond to this very quick because he told me Black Lives Matter. And if you think about it, Senator, in Atlanta, Georgia, there's more black baby that is aborted than anything. So if Black Lives Matter, why are you not protecting those babies? And instead of aborting those babies, why are you not baptizing those babies?
The Woman King is a modern-day version of D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. The 1915 silent film was used to promote racism through its false narratives. The Woman King does the same thing. It lies and misappropriates history, leaving the viewer into thinking that the Dahomey tribe eradicated slavery from within their ranks. They did not. Instead, they continued on with impunity. Yet, people still make excuses. Some people refuse to put any blame whatsoever on Africa for their huge part in the slave trade. Now, why is that? Black Lives Matter! Oh, did you see the new Candace Owens film on BLM? Nah, man, you a sellout. Oh, you mean BLM raising nearly $80 million, but almost zero money going to the black community? Building several lavish multi-million-dollar properties in affluent all-white neighborhoods and investing $32 million in Wall Street? You mean that kind of a sellout? Oh, man, Black Lives Matter! Despite Roots' claim that during the heyday of the massive slave trade from West Africa to America, a white man was more likely to develop malaria in Africa than catch slaves. The average life expectancy of a white male in sub-Saharan Africa's interior at the time was less than a year. Men from Europe or the Western Hemisphere arrived on Africa's coast, bought slaves, and fled as quickly as they could. For the slave trade to be possible, they needed massive help from Africans. Because we do not want to be numbers, we will defend the value of the human being. Every single human being, because each of us has unique genetic code that is unrepeatable. And like it or not, that is sacred. We will defend it. We will defend God, country, and family. For those things that disgust people so much, we will do it to defend our freedom. Because we will never be slaves and simple consumers at the mercy of financial speculators.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill." All right. Hello, everybody. Hope we're live and hope we're doing well tonight. Have some technical difficulties as I'm having in this new environment that I am, but worked it out, changed the microphone over to the green screen, and have another camera I can show myself on if need be. But for now, this is what we have. So how's everybody doing tonight? If you guys are just joining for the first time, my name is Kyle, and I'm with the Conservative Take, and we are a outlet that covers pop culture and politics, typically, mostly with culture. But right now with the election, I'm getting deeper into it. Earlier in the channel, let's say 6 years ago, it was all about politics. I would do analysis and that sort of stuff too. So I'm gonna give you a little background on myself here of what I've done quickly so you can feel some comfort level. So I've been a political analyst for many, many years, ran some campaigns. I've been involved in the young Republicans in Greensboro, North Carolina, at a local level and at a national level as a young Republican national committee man for the state convention in Indianapolis. So I can go on and on, but I've got some experience there. I am no longer a member of the Republican Party after what they did with Trump. I vote that way, but I'm no longer a registered Republican, and I actually feel better about that, actually. Anyway, what's happening right now is we're seeing a massive realignment to where we're seeing the political popular left and the political popular right coming together for the first time since probably 1776. And it's a really phenomenal thing that's happening. And so the thing that's interesting about it is that this was Trump tried to put this together back in 2017, but he was thwarted by his own people. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So I'm gonna lay out a little bit what the itinerary is going to be for here, because the first thing that came up, and the reason why I first did a live stream earlier this morning on Instagram, and you can see that right now. I was in my car, and I was basically upset about this Jack Smith indictment of Trump. You have this guy who is unelected, unconstitutionally given this position to go after Trump for this J6 stuff, which was a total, I won't say here, maybe on my locals I will do that, but it was a total farce. And we saw the footage. Once Tucker showed the footage, pretty much the gig was up. But anyway, so as of, I think 4:00 today, roughly Eastern time, there's another indictment laid down on Trump. And this is after the Supreme Court decision, which basically says that presidents can be immune for actions taken while in office. And of course, Jack said, well, in this particular case, we're going to run it. They're charging that Trump was a personal citizen in this particular instance. So I'll mention that just because it's the elephant in the room, no pun intended. But in the end of the day, what's going to happen is Trump's going to file a motion basically saying, hello, I have immunity. Remember that Supreme Court thing a few weeks ago? And then that's going to go to the DC court. The DC court's going to say no because they're liberal as crap. That's where I'm from. I'm from DC. They're Marxists in Washington. And then from there, they're going to say no. And then Trump's going to appeal that. And it's going to go up to the DC Circuit Court. And of course, they're going to say no, of course. And then Trump's going to do another appeal to that. And then it's going to go to the Supreme. Oh, I'm sorry. We already had an election. Too late. Trump's going to win. And then he's going to fire Jack Smith. And that's going to be it. So, so what I want to lay out essentially was this. And first of all, Trump, Trump's down. I mean, if you look at the RCP average, he's down 1.52 points. And one poll this past week had him down 7. Okay, we're going to talk about that one too. That push poll that had him down, the FPU poll that had him down, or FDU, whichever one, I can't remember, had him down 7 points. I'll explain that one, how ridiculous that one was. And it's an embarrassment, total embarrassment. No, Trump is not down 2 nationally. He's certainly not down 7. If anything, he's up 3. And it's probably up way more, especially if you look at the key states that we're going to pull out. I've got a lot of information here, a lot of data, a lot of numbers that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to pull up a chart of the Electoral College, and I'm going to go by state and go through this. Now, this isn't my stuff, all right? So I'm not claiming to have this. I'm not a political analyst like that. I am getting my information from Richard. I'm getting from Rich Baris and Robert Barnes. So Robert Barnes and Rich Baris of the People's Pundit. And there's a podcast that came out yesterday. It's about 2 hours and 43 minutes. So you can either listen to all of that, or you can listen to me for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I'll give you the same information. So I'm going to summarize that. So I'll put a link to that particular podcast, but I'm going to regurgitate their numbers and give my own analysis on this too. So, and Rich Baris is one of the best posters out there. He's fantastic, and he's hilarious. I mean, he's hilarious. He's got this accent. It's hilarious. He's a fun guy to listen to. I've listened to about 6 hours in the past 2 days with these guys, and it's just really good information. And they give you the information in a way that is not only palatable to a person who's a layman in this area, but also in an entertaining way as well. And then they're staunch constitutionalists, at least Robert is, and Rich is too, but they call it straight. If Trump was down 5, I would know about it. So, and they're not going to sugarcoat it. So that's the good thing. Some posters, they have their bias in there. These guys don't seem to have that. And they've been pretty accurate. If you go back and look at their record, it's pretty accurate. So I'm going to regurgitate their information a little bit later and go through all the states and go through basically their talking points. So again, you can spend 2 hours and 43 minutes, which I think you should do anyway. It's very, very good. And you can get this information yourself. But I'm going to say what they said for the most part and interject some things too. And some of the stuff's original on my part too. So, really quickly, if you guys go out to, let me see if I have it queued up here. If you go to our locals page, yeah, right here. So if you go there, we have several articles out there on locals, and it's 100% free. So you go out there, and I put an article out there about RFK and his impact on this election. And I'm going to go into more detail as to why that impact is even bigger than any of us thought. I've already covered the indictment, but I'm going to cover more into that. I'm going to cover as to why Kamala Harris did it. I'm going to say key reasons why it backfired. And one of those key reasons is going to fire right into the strength of RFK and why he is going to be a thorn in the side of the Democrats this election cycle. And then lastly, that'll be enough for there. And then I'll go into the state races, and I'll give you the way the map looks right now based on the People's Pundit. And it looks very good. I'll just give you a spoiler there. All right. So what I'm going to do now, before I go into all this, well, let me do this first. I'm going to do the indictment stuff, and then I'm going to get off that, and then I'm going to go into RFK and spend a lot of time on him and why he's so critical to this movement, into this election cycle. All right. So the first thing about the indictment I heard, when I first heard the indictment, I was like, okay, so obviously there's a reason why this is happening, because we saw pictures of Nancy Pelosi, who's basically she's the shot maker, right? If we were in prison, she'd be the shot caller. She'd be the one, she would be the one who is calling the shots, right? And that's what she's doing. She's a kingmaker as well. Her, Obama, Hillary, those guys, a lot of the elite within the Democrat Party are running the show here. And one more thing I'll say as an aside. I got a chance to watch about 30 minutes of I think 2-hour interview with Tulsi Gabbard. And I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you about Tulsi. I just saw her always as just a liberal who I'm not going to vote for. I don't care about. I appreciate the fact that she, took Kamala out in the primaries, but I never really gave her any serious consideration at all until today, because I was hearing her policies on foreign policy and the swamp, and just the how she was pushed aside by the Democrats, why the power base in the party are doing what they're doing, and her military experience and expertise about the military industrial complex. I was okay. She's liberal in social areas. I mean, social areas, which I'm not down with that. But she's a patriot. She is a throwback to the classical liberals of, let's say, the 80s. Okay. So I have a lot of respect for her, and she's now on the ticket. So I'm going to try to find a link to that and put it into the description here as well, because I think it's definitely worth watching. At least the first 30 minutes that I saw was fantastic. Okay. So let's just get into this whole indictment thing. So the first thing I thought about was that, hey, Nancy Pelosi, she's probably, whomever is like, okay, Kamala is taking too much smoke right now. She's taking smoke about her policy of price fixing. She's taking smoke on her very vanilla speech where she had no policies mentioned. She's getting smoke on her not showing up for interviews. She's getting smoke on her pushing back on this debate and running from Trump. No matter how they try to spin it, it is what it is. She's getting smoke for her flip-flopping. I mean, that particular ad that Trump put out that had her debating herself was just classic. Unfortunately, I don't have anything queued up because the difficulties it had technically wise, I can't queue it up, unfortunately. I'd love to show you now, but it's just not possible. But I'm sure many of you have seen it. So she's catching heat everywhere. And so I think the main reason why they wanted to do this, get Jack Smith to do this, was to, number one, primarily get the smoke off of Kamala, put it on Trump, say, hey, look at that orange guy. I told you that he was a felon. I told you he was a degenerate. I told you this, blah, 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 because we're still sort of early in the news cycle. It's Tuesday. It's still pretty early. And so they can still spin it through, Wednesday and Thursday, going into Labor Day weekend. And so, because one thing we have to be clear about, I didn't mention this earlier, is that the RFK announcement was straight gangster. everything about, and I'm getting excited just thinking about this. I mean, everything about this dude, the whole announcement, the whole thing was just straight up. It was straight thug, man. It was thug, and I know Trump's a thug, my man, and RFK straight gangster too, man. And they got together, and I'm sure they said, look, the DNC, she's probably gonna get a bump, even though she hasn't got a bump so far. But the Democrats are gonna spin it, thinking that she's the greatest person since Ronald Reagan, even Obama, even better than all these people. And so how are we going to get this? And I can just imagine RFK and Trump getting together. You know what, dude? You know what? She screwed you over, didn't she? Yeah, she did. I didn't get Secret Service protection. And they've been, my volunteers who've been out in the hot sun all over the place in Arizona and Michigan and everywhere, trying to get on ballots and doing it the legal way, the grassroots way. And yeah, we were getting sued in every single of those states. And Trump, we know you've been jacked up. We know that you've been, and they've been hitting you hard, literally with bullets. And so how about you come on board the day after the convention? So early it kind of got scooped early, right? So then we kind of thought that would happen, but then when Friday came in, they say Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to have a speech tomorrow. It's probably going to be him, whatever, dropping or suspending his campaign. So, but yeah, of course, in the morning he did that, and he's only suspending it for like the 10 states that are swing and keep the other ones on the ballot, so he can hurt Kamala. Which, by the way, as an aside, I just found out today that the Michigan Attorney General basically said we're going to keep him on the Michigan ballot because they're liberals. No, because they said because third-party candidate technicality, you can't get him off. So that's going to sting a little bit for Trump. That's not going to help Trump at all. It's going to hurt him. I'm not going to lie, but it's not a game changer. But it is for Michigan. Michigan's going to be so tight anyway. That's going to be that's going to be the worst one to do. So. But I don't think, based on my numbers, he's even going to need Michigan. But we'll get there in a second. So anyway, just speed up a little bit. Boom, he hits that about 11 o'clock. The next thing you know, Trump's rally, I think that was in Arizona, I believe, right? Yeah. And so then he comes on stage. And what I love about it, in so many different ways, it's so awesome. So I think Scavino had the shot of him going through this, backstage and going onto the stage, and Trump's there looking back at him. It's like it's all planned. So as he's walking off onto the stage, I guess it would be stage right. No, stage left. All right. He's coming over. All of a sudden, poof, WWF pyrotechnics come out, right? Trump gets in there, gets the handshake. I mean, the smile, whatever. It's just boom. And of course, you got the Foo Fighters playing My Hero. Oh my gosh, how cool is that? And he was just so smooth. RFK Jr. is smooth, dude. He was like the final boss of a video game, man. It was a moment that when Trump wins, we look back on this 10 years from now, we're going back, yeah, that's the moment in American history that we saw the beginning of this new coalition coming together. And it's just so exciting, but we got to get there first. We got to work hard. These guys aren't going to make it easy for us. All right. So anyway, that was a new cycle. So they got mad about that. So they wanted to do something to get off that cycle, because everyone was talking about RFK Jr. and they're talking about, the margins of victories that he could have, that his leads in all those swing states are more than the actual margins, even the deficits between Trump and Biden and Kamala whenever they were, whatever, either one, it works both ways. So either way, the lead that RFK had in every single battleground state was more than the deficit, plus or minus, that Trump had with Biden or Kamala. Big, right? So then I think that's the one to do. And they wanted to, point out to Trump, make it look like he's some, felon, whatever. But this is where it backfires. Because don't you remember that every time they did anything against Trump, what happened to his poll numbers? They went up. They went up. They went up. And the fact that they went up means that, and what I'm going to get into next is going to tie into that, because it comes down to the youth vote and how Trump is taking over the youth vote and how the Democrats are losing a key demographic within the coalition. And I'm going to tell you right here what that is. And that those people are two people who are white, under 50, who don't go to church, who are working class. So no college, working class, don't go to church, white, under 50. All right, remember that. 2, Black, Hispanic, working class. And both of these in massive urban areas. So let's say we're not talking about, rural Arkansas. We're talking about Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit. You get it. Those two numbers. So, the white working class under 50, don't go to church people, and the Hispanic, Black, working class in massive urban areas. Why is that important? Because if you take those two people, if you go back and look, let's take Portland, Maine. Okay, Portland, Maine in 2020, those two groups, Biden won 40% to 50% of those people. Actually, no, he won them by 40 to 50 points. So that he won them by 40 to 50. But if you look at if you base it on exit polls in Portland, Maine, okay, that's what we're basing off of. But if you come into where we are now, half of that are going to Trump. It's a 20-point drop off going to Trump. He's eroding those people. And why is that? Because, part of the reason is because of this, of the Black urban area there, is because they feel like Trump's being oppressed, just like they feel that they were oppressed, or just like they think that they've been oppressed by the own liberal media that tells them they're oppressed, which I don't, I can't speak for them, because that's all anecdotal. That's their own story. But statistically speaking, I've covered that. But it doesn't matter. If you think you're being oppressed, you think you're down, whatever, then that's your own reality. And you see a person like Trump having the same thing happen to him that is BS. That's going to endear you to that person. Not only that, the service class here are now losing their jobs to people coming overseas, and they're losing the will and the hopes and dreams of the American dream. And so these people are fleeing to Trump for many reasons, but in my opinion, those are the two main reasons. And secondly, it's going to backfire because of the political lawfare that they're doing. And one thing that RFK, one of the things that he's big about is political freedom. Political freedom being free from the state attacking you for political reasons, or for denying you free speech, or denying you the right to bear arms, or coming after you frivolously because you're standing in their way. Well, oh yeah, we're gonna sue you because you legally got 1,000 petitions out for this area, and now you should be on the ballot. But we're going to sue you because we made up some kind of statute, whatever, and now we're going to try and keep you from being on there. They should call themselves the Communist Party, not the Democrat Party. Anyway, so, and that's another thing, because people are seeing that. And if you take consideration also that Zuckerberg just came out just yesterday or today, whenever it was, that Meta, his company, Facebook, actively partook in censoring their members by threats of the government, the Biden administration. Now, of course, Biden pushed back on that, but we've already known that. I did a video on locals on that. I couldn't do it on YouTube back then. I would have been taken off the platform. But we had talked about that too a while back, and so we already knew that, but it was confirmed. And so those two things, the fact that it endears Trump to that group of people that the Democrat Party is already losing, and also the fact that the rest of the public sees this as being BS and his poll numbers can go up. And also because what didn't happen before, which is going to happen now, is that Trump has RFK net here. See, before this happened, the lawfare was happening every single day, and people just said whatever. But RFK is a really good, he's a very good spokesperson. He's got a lot of integrity. He has an independent streak, and he has upwards of 50 million people who are going to vote for him, which is one of the reasons why Trump wanted him. And so he's going to go to his people. That message is going to go out there, and then those numbers are going to get bigger. So that 6% that I said before could be upwards 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, upward to 50, not 50%, but upwards to whatever that maximum is in these key swing states. That's going to cost the Democrats the election. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this was just a dumb move, short-sighted, petty, typical, and idiotic. It's not going to work because all you're going to do is push Trump into the White House, and he's going to fire everyone, and he's going to come after you with a vendetta. I hope he does, at least. He said he won't, but he probably won't. He's such a, I mean, he'll probably have justice, but he probably won't come at him like Hillary would. He won't come at him like Kamala would. But I think he will get justice, but I don't think he's going to get it like we all want, what I want, which I can't say publicly. The kind of justice I want to see. But anyway, it is what it is. So now, with that being said, let me take a quick drink here real quickly. By the way, these ice drinks are amazing. They're like sparkling, sugar-free. That was pineapple coconut. Fantastic. I don't have any money in that. I'm just saying. So that's a free plug for big food. So anyway, let's talk about RFK a little bit. So I've always been a fan because I grew up a Democrat, and of course John F. Kennedy. If you're a Democrat, here are your heroes, right? It's going to be, if you're a Democrat, trust me, if you're a Democrat, it's going to be Woodrow Wilson, right? It's a sophisticated professor, suave, whatever. It's going to be FDR, of course, maybe Truman, maybe not, but definitely RFK, right? RFK, smooth, good talker, all that stuff. But I didn't have, okay. I think RFK is underappreciated. He served for roughly 3 years, under 3 years. And a lot of stuff happened under his administration in those 3 years. The Bay of Pigs, Cuban Missile Crisis, the peace speech, the launch to the moon speech, not ask what you can do for your country, but he's a lot of key moments in that's personified the Kennedy administration in just that small 3 years. And I don't think he really gets enough credit. And I think he should. I think the reason why he doesn't was because he was one of the people who was against the swamp. I'm going to go off on the side here a little bit. There's a book that I'm reading. It's called, I can't think of the name of it. It's by Larry Schweikart. It's called Dragon Slayers. And it's basically about the 5 presidents that tackled the swamp. It was like, first one was Lincoln. And then you had Teddy Roosevelt, I think McKinley, and Grover Washington, JFK, Reagan, and Trump. And every one of those particular administrations had their own different swamp. They were all different, but there was still bureaucracy coming out of the spoil system from Jacksonian from roughly Jacksonian influence. But that spoil system morphed. They took out the spoil system, which is basically buddy system. You hire your buddies, or you make promises and you bring people in because they did favors for you, and you give them stuff, and then that bloats up the government. When I went down, it morphed, and then Teddy Roosevelt came in, and he took out the big companies, and they morphed into something else, and you had a big industrial military complex, and that morphed into anything. But that's kind of where we are now, part of the swamp. But it's gone so much further than all that now. And it's just incredible, and it actually infiltrated itself into the Trump administration, which I'll talk about in the second year. But the interesting thing about I'm losing my train of thought here. Where was I? RFK. RFK, of course, yes. So JFK being the one who is anti-military industrial complex, because they're the ones that got him into the Bay of Pigs, made him look stupid, made him take the blame for it, and almost got him into the Cuban Missile Crisis, almost destroyed the world, because these guys were just power hungry war hawks. And so he was killed, and RFK Jr. was 8 years old when that happened, roughly 8 or 9. And so then he remembers that slightly. He remembers some things about that. And he's talked about this in interviews. And so after his uncle died, then he grows up about 6 years later. He's 14 years old, and his father is killed. And he remembers this. And he tells the story of him being on the train with his father's body. And it's a short trip from A to Z, wherever it is. Should have taken them no time. But the train kept stopping. Every so often. Because people wanted to just stop and show their respects and their love, admiration for their father, Robert Kennedy, who was running for president against, I think he was running LBJ, I believe, in 1968. And he had just won the California primary, and he was in the Ambassador Hotel. He gave a speech, an acceptance speech, good times, whatever. And if you want to hear the whole thing, you should listen to RFK Jr. talk about this. He talks about it in a way that's really, really scary. But I'll leave a link to that story of RFK Jr. talking about how his dad was killed and what was involved in that. It was really interesting. But there's a swamp, definitely. That's my whole point. And my point is, for taking so long on this, is that RFK Jr. wants to finish the job. He was someone who, within his family, who could do the job. He had the intellectual mind. He read Latin, and he did all these different things, poetry in different languages, as his father's uncle did. Very well read. He was a staunchly independent person. He really has an empathy, and to be a good leader, you really have to have empathy or a show of strength, one or the other, if not both. He has that. He's very charismatic. He's just, and he was a good speaker. His voice sounds, interesting now, but back then it wasn't. So everyone expected him to be the next one. But when he ran, people didn't like it, because his brothers and sisters who weren't old enough when those things happened, they just churned him away into the DNC machine in Massachusetts. And that's why there's that disparity there. He's independent. He's motivated. He wants to finish the job his dad, uncle started. And that's what's motivating him. And that's why Trump brought him onto the ticket. Not as a quid pro quo, like the media wants to spin it. No, it's because they both want to help the country. And actually, I found out now that Trump wanted him on there in 2017. I'm also going to get into this thing about the MAGA being infiltrated. So you have people like Steve Gorka, and this is all verbatim from that podcast. So I'm just repeating what they said. So Gorka and, let's say, Chris Christie, big shocker there, right? Basically didn't want him to hook up with Tulsi Gabbard, which Trump also wanted in 2017. Nor did they want Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because a lot of them were in bed with Big Pharma, particularly Pfizer. And so they were pushing that away from Trump, telling Trump, you need to go do this, and basically he's new to Washington, and they basically screwed him over multiple times, and it makes so much sense now looking back on it. And if you look at Tulsi Gabbard's interview, which I just watched, I just happened to watch it just out of the blue. She basically confirms it from a separate source, totally independent of everything else. She basically said that when Trump got in 2016, it scared the establishment so much that they promised themselves that would never ever happen again. When we have an outsider like that come in, never have ever again a disruptor like that come in and do this. So things were put into motion to make sure that he was stopped at all costs. She said that in this interview. It's really fascinating, and it makes perfect sense. And so she said instead of attacking him, well, they attacked him every way. They said one of the ways she said was infiltrating his own people. So everyone around him was basically handpicked from someone else who was a swamp critter, and basically everybody in Washington is a swamp critter, which is why I like J.D. Vance, because when J.D. Vance was running for whatever he was, just a few months, maybe a year ago, he said basically when Trump announced whatever, he said when and if Trump announced, he said he should fire 85% of the federal workers in DC. He said in an interview. So yeah, so he needs to get people around him like that, and he's doing that. He's getting Tucker, Elon, Tulsi, JD, JFK, RFK Jr., and there's more to come. And so, and the key thing about this is really two things: is Trump is not an ideologue. He's not a policy wonk. He basically is a pragmatic. He thinks if it's going to work, if it works, I'll do it. If a tariff will work, I'll do a tariff. Is it legal? Okay, let's do it. And secondly, he doesn't mind listening to outsiders. He doesn't mind tying in with people who may not 100% agree with him. And so he just wants to get the country back. And I tell this story a lot. I tell the story a bunch. And from a political standpoint, this is the way I think it should work. So if I am a private owner, or my neighbor owns his home, he's got a big tree in his yard, it's threatening his house. He wants to cut it down. And so people are saying, okay, well, you can't do that. Am I saying this wrong? I think I'm saying this wrong. The point is it property rights or is it the rights of the tree? So the environmentalists will say, okay, the tree has its rights, whatever. We should save the tree. That's what it is. Save the tree. And then the property owner says, I want to keep the tree because in my property, it's my tree. Both of them want to save the tree. One wants it because of property rights and ownership. The other one, far leftist, wants to save the tree because, oh, the tree's so awesome. It's so cute and healthy. It's got feelings. At the end of the day, what happens? The tree gets saved. It doesn't matter what your motives were. That's how I always seen philosophical and ideological differences with people. You find a common area, you work on it, and then when that's done, you either don't talk about anything else anymore and stay friends, or you depart and don't talk to each other ever again. That's how I see it. Anyway, so that's what happened to Trump. And so when he got burned several times by these people, he basically said, you know what, this isn't right, and we're going to do something with this, and we're going to take a new step. And one of the things I want to bring up real quickly here, if I have everything set up for the next thing here, let me just get everything for JFK. Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is interesting. This is very interesting. So they infiltrated him in his first term, and then during his campaign recently, when DeSantis was running, a lot of people came in who just hated Trump, never Trumpers, came into the campaign and tried to infiltrate it again, try to tell him, why don't you go take credit for the vaccines, take credit for all that. You're the one that did it, record time. And according to Robert I'm not, according to Robert in this podcast, he said, and I don't say I agree because I don't know, but it makes 100% sense why he was, taking credit for it when the pulse of MAGA was like, no, we got some problems with this. So why are you taking credit for this? Like Steve Deace couldn't stand. He's a pundit on the radio on the Blaze. Couldn't stand Trump for that. But eventually, what ended up happening was people in his own circle, like Barron Trump, was like, "Dad, come on, man, Dad, come on, Dad, come on, seriously, Dad." Trump Jr. as well. We're saying, no, Dad, this vaccine thing, you need to step back on that. He would have rallies. Go back and look at some old rallies. Look at any rally he did after he announced his re-election campaign. He would talk about, the whole thing that happened, with Fauci and this and that. And he didn't mention Fauci. I think he was smart enough not to do that. But he did say, we got this record time, whatever. And prior to that and after that, it was rip roaring crowd. Yeah, woo! The moment he said anything about the vaccine, it was like quiet. And I noticed that myself. And he had to pick up on that. And so here is where it all sets up. This is where it ties in RFK Jr. This is why this is all going to tie in and make sense why I organized it this way. So this organization called the 1776 Law Center. And it took me a while to figure this out. Now, if you go to that link right there, bc.theconservative.com, go there. There's an article out there. There's several. But this the last one. It is entitled, let's see if I can pull it up here. Guys. Let me just give me a second. And I'll just reference this. Nope, that's the wrong one. Okay, let's share that. All right, so here is my locals channel. And so this article here is called "The Survey That Transformed MAGA, Ushering a New Freedom Mark." We delivered this in-house a few days ago. And I'm pretty proud of this particular article. It kind of goes through everything I'm going to talk to you about right now, about food freedom, about political freedom, about financial freedom, and about, what's the other one? Medical, food, political, and financial, which is another reason why Trump went after Bitcoin recently. All this is coming into play. It comes into because of this 1776 Law Center. At the bottom here, there are links to the numbers here. So you can actually, I don't know if that's showing, is that showing up on the screen? I don't have two screens here, so I can't tell. But anyway, if you click on that link, it will bring up the survey for yourself. You can see for yourself. All right, so enough of that. So go take a look at that. Again, it's free, and we're going to do more articles for the entire election cycle. We have other articles out there about how Kamala Harris's father is a commie, and just about how just a bunch of stuff out there that's interesting, I think. So this Law Center, 1776 Law Center, in May of this year, conducted a massive survey against thousands, I think over 1,000, I believe, recipients in Middle America. And they hired a company, a big data company, big polling data company, or that can handle massive amounts of data and compute it. And the numbers are pretty shocking. Essentially, and I'll run it down here quickly, is you have, here? Okay, so you have medical freedom. I'll just pull up on the screen here so I can reference it. So let me just do this so I can just say this and not have to worry about remembering everything. All right, so we'll start from the bottom. So financial freedom, essentially, guys, is the government has control over the fiat currency. Fiat currency basically means paper money, not backed by anything. And people want to talk about how, cryptocurrency isn't backed by anything. Well, I would argue that stable coins are more secure than the fiat dollar, because stable coins, at least, they're indexed, right? And they're supposed to have enough real dollars that match that. And then Bitcoin has a limited amount of currency. And so to me, Bitcoin and stable coins are, if not the the same as the fiat dollar, better. You can argue that all you want. People say it's really not, whatever. But the point is, if it's not a tangible good, like, even gold. What is gold? What's gold going to do for you when the grid goes down? You want food, water, shelter. You want services. That's what's going to be tradable in the future. Gold is fine, but historically speaking, when it comes down to the grid going down, you're going to want some water. You're going to want some food. Okay, you're going to want some shelter. You're going to want some matches. You're going to want someone to be able to make stuff. Make someone can do stuff. So that's where the real value comes in. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Nevertheless, financial freedom allows us to basically, and the thought process is to essentially say that we're not relying on the U.S. dollar that can be manipulated. We can rely on something that is more stable, more secure, and that's the whole thing there. And plus other things too there. Political freedom is basically what we're seeing now with lawfare, essentially with what happened to Dinesh D'Souza, process crimes. He paid some money to a friend because something inconvenienced. He couldn't get to his campaign finance money then. I think it was a time critical situation. So he wrote a check out of his own checking book and then paid himself back through the campaign. Technically a violation of the McCain-Feingold Act. Yeah, but it's a hand slap. It's not jail time. And so anyway, that just pisses me off anyway, just ridiculous. We see it constantly, this two-tier system. That's what political freedom is about. Everything that's happened to Trump, that's what that's about. Everything that's happened to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., same thing. He mentioned that in the speech when he basically dropped out of the race. Just ridiculous. Food freedom is making our kids safe again. It's MAHA, make America healthy again. Just the things that are happening with big ag and just the subsidies of sugar and all kinds of things that are happening, the big corruption, and it's freeing us from people who have their hooks in with the pharmaceutical companies to give us food that's going to put us into hospitals, which can be fed by the pharmaceutical companies. And everyone's scratching each other's back, and who's suffering? The American people. That's food freedom. And then the last one is medical freedom. We know about that, with just autism and just what's going on, with giving a kid a vaccine that should be given to a horse in terms of the amount of quantity that you're giving these kids. And then we're wondering why we're seeing autism and other childhood illnesses go through the roof. So that is what JFK is all about. That is what I keep saying JFK. By the way, I saw a speech by JFK today. I watched his speech at American University. Some people think it's the speech that got him killed. It's called the peace speech. Very emotional speech. Check it out. It's awesome. So I'm thinking JFK, but I should be saying RFK Jr. But nevertheless, so back to the freedom. So RFK Jr. That's his passion. That's his passion, and he wants to finish the job that his dad and his uncle started. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the swamp, man. If you really think about it, I just thought about it right now. So I'm kind of going off cuff here. Medical freedom, food freedom, political freedom, and which also includes the freedom of speech and also the right to bear arms. Everything, constitutional rights. That's liberty, man. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now that outside of this that I would really, that couldn't fit in one of these four categories. And so what Robert F. Kennedy is looking for is a breakaway, a decoupling of a centralized swamp, a centralized bureaucracy, a centralized oligarchy, a feudalian system. This is called new feudalism, where they're trying to get back to pre-Magna Carta days, where the king had the divine right to rule. And the people, so much for you. But the Magna Carta was the first time, and granted, they were noblemen, they weren't real commoners, but they weren't the king. That was the first step for individuals getting some sort of something early on. And then that grew into the Declaration of Independence and where we have today. So they're trying to go back to that. They're trying to go back to that, where the very, very small few own and control everybody else. That's ultimately the swamp. That's ultimate. It's way bigger than a swamp, actually. It's way worse. And so by implementing something like this would get us back there. And worldwide, we're seeing countries trying this. But unfortunately for them, they don't really have the framework that we have here in America. Even though our framework's being underwrote and undergirded and it's being destroyed little by little, it's still there. And through the right judges, through the right people in place, we can go back and set the rules straight. Because what we're seeing now is a law that was written 200 some years ago, right? You have one judge or one court say, "Oh, okay." It's kind of like the woman. The story. It's kind of like the woman who you go to grandma's house or grandma's house, and then she cuts she has an oven and she's baking a loaf of bread. She cuts the bread in half, sticks it in the oven, and bakes it. And you wonder, okay, why are you doing that? So you go ask mom, whatever. And mom said, or you say, ask your grandmother, whatever. You ask your mother. You say, ask your mother. She says, well, that's what my mother did. So you go ask great grandmother, and she said, oh yeah, well our oven was too small. So what you're having policies that were misinterpreted early on, and what they're doing is they cite precedent, but they're citing precedent on a bad decision. We need to go back to original constructionist. I can't say the word. Constructionist view of our laws. What did the founding fathers want in terms of the intent? What was their intention? And that's what we need more of. And this could correct over a couple of generations. It's going to take work and time and will. Which one thing, as conservatives, we don't have the will. We have the law mostly sometimes, but we don't have the will. The liberals, the left, they have the will and they don't care about the law. And that's why you heard Kamala say, she said, talking about in a speech a few years back when she was running for something, she was like talking to a small crowd. She was like, oh yeah, we'll take the patents of that company. We'll take the patent of that company and then we'll run it our way. And then someone in the audience like, can you do that? And she goes, yeah, you can do that. Oh yeah, you can do that. You can do that if you have the will. And I got the will. Straight out of the Stalin playbook. Now, that's fascism. Fascism is basically saying you can have private property, but we're going to run it. We're going to tell you how to do it. So they project this stuff on us all the time, but fascism is a socialist construct. And the goal of socialism is always communism. Socialism is just the bloodless revolution. But ultimately, it all comes down to communism because eventually you're going to have to enforce it. And when you enforce it, there you go. So that's FDR's. Sorry, God, what am I doing? That's Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s big thing. So he wants to do that, and his presence on the campaign, his realignment of the popular left and the popular right, is coming together. Probably the first time in U.S. history, is now allowing big things to happen because his coalition is so fervent in this, which is why he can get the number of signatures that he got in a month, because he got the people who are loyal to him. And looking at the numbers of the swing states, again, his margin of victory, his margin of the electorate is bigger than the deficit that Trump has, plus or minus, with Kamala. All right, so let's get into this a little bit more. I think I've covered all of that. Yeah, I think I covered all that. Let's remove this. Take another drink here. Let's see if any questions here. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, so the person here says, my eyes, I can't hear it, see that. Imagine mentioning Trump 271 times at the DNC without any policy talk. Let me see. Listening, watching, off and on. is the reception blurry, or is it stopping and going? Let me know about that. My upload on here is really super fast, but something's going on. I've got some sort of a clog in my connection, maybe potentially. But I'm running close to 1,000 gigabits, and about 80 up, which is plenty for something like this. So yeah, so mentioning Trump. So yeah, so even Kennedy mentioned that. So he said, why have policy when you can hate Trump? And I wish I had this clip out here. I don't have it, but essentially, another pundit on one of these talking heads said something to the effect of that we should let the media campaign for her, let her, hide and just let the media cover for her, carry water for her, and she can just run out the clock. But that's not working because the debate is actually on now. And on my live stream yesterday on Instagram, I mentioned that this could be a problem if she has an unmuted mic, because she could just talk over and filibuster and run out the clock. But there's no filtered mic. I'm sorry, there's no unmuted mic. And there's no cheat sheets. And it's going to be the same format as the debate that Trump had with Biden. And so that's a win for Trump. And I think the reason why they agreed to that is because they know they're behind. And we'll get into that in a second. And what else was there? Oh, yeah. So she's also going to do an interview on CNN, but she's going to be coddled and chaperoned by her VP candidate, Mr. Walz. How embarrassing is that? They are so afraid of her saying something stupid. But I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think it's going to matter at all. When you hear these numbers, I think you're going to be like, yeah, it's probably not going to matter. All right. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pull up a map of the U.S. and I'm just going to start talking. And then when I'm done, I'm done. That's going to be pretty much it. I've covered everything I needed to cover, but the rest of this is basically going to be, because the whole lead-in was about RFK, the freedoms and all that stuff, the merging of a new coalition. Let me mention that really quickly. There's been about 7 coalitions in U.S. history. I can't name them. I'll do a video on it at some point. But one of them was the Reagan generation, right? One of them was the FDR New Deal coalition. And of course, you know about MAGA. Well, MAGA was a transformative coalition. He brought in the downtrodden so-called blue wall Midwesterns, the same guys and gals who for 30, 40 years voted Democrat time and time again, but flipped and voted for Trump in middle America, which got him the victory. And that's what broke the blue wall. But because the left is so good at framing things, MAGA's just going to be, that's the time when y'all were back in chains, or MAGA was the time when women couldn't have reproductive rights, or MAGA was the time when, so they reframe something. Look, dude, America's been great from the very beginning. I did a video, one of the first videos I did on this channel was a video, Why America's Great. Because I knew these idiots were going to say that. And so, not that people watch my videos. Well, I do get some hits by videos. I must say, my shorts get millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of views. My shorts do. Long form videos don't get as much. It's a different algorithm altogether, but my shorts do get, so I think this channel's got 170 million views so far. It's hard to believe that that many views. But the point is that I put the video out so people could see it. And I should probably do a short into it, and that way I know millions will probably see it. But the point is, but I don't have to anymore because Robert F. Kennedy already did it for us. He refashioned and reframed it in a way, not different from what Trump said, but he framed it in a way that is palatable to the people who think MAGA is, gosh darn, America really should be more white. These people are just so incensed with stupidity and lack of critical thinking. Whatever the narrative is, they just knock over and they just think it, do it, say it. It's really embarrassing. But nevertheless, Robert F. Kennedy, with a lot of credibility, came out and put that tweet out together. And you can see for yourself. Again, I can't put it up because I don't have it. But it's very, very good. And what that allows Trump to do is build on a coalition even bigger than what the initial MAGA had. So let's get into this. So let me pull up. I'm going to pull up 270 to win. That's the only one I really know of, really. All right. Let me pull it up first. All right. All right, let me share this. All right. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clean the map out. If I can. How do I clean the whole thing out? I don't want to have to just... There's got to be a way to clean this thing out. I don't want to do that. That's going to take too long. Looks like they got rid of that feature. It doesn't matter. We'll just tell you, we'll just do the swing states. The ones that are, first of all, Texas is red. It's ridiculous. All right, so we'll just do the swing states. Let's take off Maine. Let's take off Virginia's lighter than that. That's probably right. Illinois is lighter than what you think. New York, Jersey is definitely lighter than you think. Still going to go his way, but Massachusetts, no chance there. This looks pretty good. Even Hawaii is a little lighter because of Tulsi. All right, so let's get into this. So let's start with Maine, guys. Sorry. So these are, again, this is coming from the People's Pundit. Again, you go to that podcast and see the whole thing. They'll say the same thing I'm saying, just and with more authority than I'm saying it. I'm just giving you a summary. So essentially, they're talking about, I mentioned it before, about the two categories that are eroding off of the Kamala ticket are these working class, no college, under 50, white, no religion, or don't go to church, and the same category, but Black, Hispanic in urban centers. These people are dropping off like flies off the Biden campaign, up to 20 points off of that, and that's going to carry this whole. If you model this whole thing out to the entire country, what we're seeing in terms of these polling, that's what's going to make the difference. And what's even more so to this is the RFK factor right here, because a lot of these people care about the medical freedoms. They care about the big ag, the food freedom. In particular, up in Maine, big ag's been attacking the fishing people up there, the fishing community, and they're pissed off over that. And so they might not go to Trump, but they'll go for someone like a Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has this as his platform. And now this platform is part of the MAGA platform now. So Robert F. Kennedy's platform here, and this is this freedom, this Freedom Coalition, or the 1776 Law Center survey, that which I failed to mention, by the way, that data was leaked out from different affiliates within MAGA, and they were put in front of Trump through back channels because his own people weren't doing it. They wanted to keep him as far away from this as possible because they had their own interests in big pharma, big ag, whatever. And so they didn't want Trump to have that. But through his own sons, Barron and even Jr., I'm not sure about Eric, I'm sure him too, and other affiliates within his own inner circle were telling him, dude, this is the way to go. And so when he saw the numbers of that survey, that's when he went to did that thing about Bitcoin. You remember that? He went to did that whole thing on Bitcoin, and then he started making statements about medical freedoms, about making sure that the pharmacies don't screw us over with their policies of. I don't think he said vaccines at all, but he did mention something that medical freedom. He did mention that. So he started to shift his positioning away from this globalist, this big tech, big ag, big pharma conglomerate within its own inner circle, and push more to a liberty in terms of personal liberties style of campaigning, which really wasn't there from the very, very beginning. I mean, again, Trump is not an ideologue, but he did understand America first. And what Trump is saying is America first, and I will do anything legal to make it happen. Your typical country club, Calvin Coolidge wonk Republican I will do whatever good for America that fits within my own ideology. No tariffs, for no reason whatsoever. Ben Shapiro. Never. Tariffs are bad. It's a tax. We don't tax. We don't tax. That's one of the reasons why I left the Republican Party. These people are just, anyway. All right. So this is what they're thinking in terms of Maine. And I thought this was interesting. I'll just go right here. They're calling for Maine at a +1. And the reason why is for reasons I just mentioned. And they split up their stuff through congressional districts. So let me see if I can get those in here too. There's a Maine 1 and a Maine 2. So let's go. I think they said Maine 4 overall would go that way. But then Maine 2 would go Republican, and Maine 1, which is bigger, would go Democratic. So that's what they're looking at there for Maine. All right. So let me check that off. Let's go to the next state. Let's go to New Hampshire. According to them, New Hampshire has a big boomer retirees in 2020, baby boomers that helped Biden in 2020. And by the way, I'm prefacing all of this on 2020 as Biden won. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? So let's keep going here. Young votes are there. It's a big age gap there. 18 through 24. When Biden 45, he won by 45. Now it's down to 20. So in 2020, his young voters was from 18 to 24. It's up 20. He was beating Trump by 45 points. Now it's just 20. And so that's huge. And so they basically say that Trump should win New Hampshire by 1 point. All right. New York, I was saying before, Trump would lose that by 15, which is still one of the closest races in New York in history. New Jersey, they're looking at it by 7. Him losing by 7 just isn't quite there yet in order to win New Jersey yet. Massachusetts is forget it. That's too many affluent people up there, highly educated, a lot of college, a lot of Kennedys. So yeah, so that's going. They're thinking that he's going to lose Massachusetts by 30. Let's see where we keep going here. Connecticut, he would lose it by 15. Rhode Island by 15. And yeah, so there we have, that's the whole New England area there. Then we got that. We didn't mention Delaware. I don't have Delaware on here at all, so we'll just squash that one. Okay, what else do I have here? Yeah, so the same thing with the people who are not really religious, no church, working class. That's a swingable area. People that can be lured into Trump because they lean more to a Robert F. Kennedy position because they're getting screwed over for various reasons. Whatever the reason is, whether it be fishing, hunting, whether it be I can't carry. I got to get registration for this firearm that's already been licensed. And I'm getting taxed for it. Whatever reason it could be. Those kind of freedoms, individual liberties that Trump really doesn't speak of from an ideological policy position, like even like a J.D. Vance would. He just says it as a pragmatist, right? He says it in ways that make sense to us, which is why he resonates so much to us because we can understand him. He's not going to try and give us platitudes and high elevated speech to make him sound more intelligent. He doesn't do that. And so people think, well, he speaks at 7th grade level. Yeah, it's effective. I write at 7th grade level because it's effective. Anyway, yeah, same. I mentioned to you before about the Hispanics, working class, all of that, non-church. Yeah, I mentioned that already. All right, done there. Let's go to. Okay, let me mention some terms here. By the way, margin of error basically means if you have a poll, let's say we poll 1,000 people, and to make a poll, you have to sort of make guesses of who's going to show up based on different metrics and algorithms. You pretty much guess how it's going to turn out, and based on certain things, certain indicators and stuff like that. But then there's always like a margin of error. You say, well, you know what? Plus or minus, I could be wrong here or there. I'm not quite sure. And so the margin of error is typically like 2 or 3 points. The smaller the margin of error, the more accurate or the more confident that the pollster has that it's going to be a good poll. If it's a margin of error of 8, they might spike the poll. I mean, they might not even publicize it because they're afraid that it's something wrong with it, so they won't show it. But in most cases, the margin of error is somewhere around 1 or 2, 3 points, 4 points, something like that. And so when I say margin of error, that's what I mean. But then there's something called margin of fraud, and and so the margin of fraud is a little bit bigger than the margin of error. It means overwhelming the electorate so that they can't cheat, because you only have a finite amount of ballots. And so what happens is, if they do canvas harvesting, or if they harvest vote, which means they go to apartment complex and they want to so grandma who's in an apartment downtown, she can't get out to vote. So in some states, this is legal. You can go in there and say, hey, grandma, how about I vote for you? Fill this out. I'll go do it for you. And they do all these ballot harvesting things. They collect them all, take them on, and they vote for them. Wink, wink. But what's interesting is, because of the Biden economy, people can't afford housing as much as they used to. So there's less people in these housing complexes anymore. So they can't harvest like they used to. And there's a bunch of stuff happening now with cleansing of the ballots, registering, taking people off the rolls that aren't supposed to be there. Either they moved, they died, they were illegal. And that's happening all over the place now. And so there's a limited number of ballots to even present. So what the thought was, the fear was that when Biden signed that bill that basically said that illegals can vote, the fear was that, no, we're not going to actually have illegals vote. We just want to put them on the voting rolls, and then we can go get those and then say we're somebody and then vote for that person, right? And then throw them into an absentee ballot box that's unvetted, unguarded. So that was the fear. And that still is a fear, but it's still, you can still defeat that with a lot of votes. And so there's a margin of fraud. So margin of error, let's say 2 or 3. Margin of fraud would be like 6. Would be something that you can't cheat 6, unless, not. You can't put anything past people nowadays, but that's what that means. And I have something here called the RFK, which is the Robert F. Kennedy factor. And I also have something here called low propensity voters. And that's another thing that I didn't mention before. But low propensity voters are people who just want to go to work. They wake up on November, the first week, and they're like, oh, I got to vote today? Oh, is it election year? Is it a president? No? Okay, I'm not going to vote. They're only going to vote when they think it's important for themselves. And so those are low propensity voters. They don't vote that often. But the ones that do, or to consider this class, are going for Trump in double digits. So, and this is also in an article on let me put that back up on the screen here so you guys can see it. Yeah, it's still there. So if you go to that bctheconservative.com, there is an article there about this. I mentioned this. I quote these numbers and give the link. But essentially, the ballot. What am I saying? Let me see. Low propensity voters, are going double digit for Trump, and so they want to keep the numbers lower. I think they were saying that they were, and this is according to the People's Pundit, that they wanted to keep, this is the Democrats, wanted to keep the election down to about 140 million votes total. Because what they were finding was the more people they were harvesting, the more people they were pulling and getting and just, just signing up everybody, they were going for Trump. Because what we're seeing here is a total realignment. And they're not even seeing that. So they're going to have to be more targeted on who they go for. Because Trump's numbers with Hispanics is like half of them. He's like within like 2 points of Kamala. And some polls, I've seen him leading her or tied with Hispanics. Incredible. And the thing is, the people who are coming over illegally understand where they came from. Yeah, dude, I just came from a place that was kind of bad. So why would I want that same thing here? I risked my life coming here. I stood in line for years to become a citizen here. Why do I want these guys and gals coming, mostly guys, because I don't see many, able-bodied men, so I see. But all I see is these guys coming over, jumping over the line, and doing it. So I don't want that happening. So these Hispanics coming in, these first generation particularly, don't want to see that. Cuban Americans in South Florida particularly don't want that. And a lot of people in Chicago, Black owners in Philly, in these industrial complex areas, Detroit, are having a hard time with illegals coming in and taking over the stuff that they barely get themselves. And so there's a lot of resentment going on here with illegals. And so this whole thing, the Democrats are really screwing themselves. And I'll say this real quick. I don't go too much off subject here. I know where we're going to be. We're going to be going back to, when we come back, we're going to talk about, what is that? Pennsylvania? Yeah, we'll do Pennsylvania in a second here. So that's where we come back. So when the Democrats decided that they weren't going to go for the middle American during their convention, they were just going to double down on, on the far left liberal side of their party, the wackos. I mean, and talk about joy and hope and talk about Trump, like this person here said 271 times, mentioned Biden twice, which is probably smart. I mean, mentioning Biden twice is probably oh, you're absolutely welcome. Hope I'm doing a service here. Thank you. They were doing themselves a serious disservice doing that, because, and this is interesting. This is so interesting that you might get a kick out of this. So Trump's whole thing from the very beginning was taking from the left. Once he found out that they hated him so much that they were going to go left, whatever he said, he said, "What, really? Are you that stupid? You're going to give me this position? The sky is blue." "Oh, no, it's not. The sky is not blue, Trump. You racist. The sky is orange." "All right, fine. Let me see. Tires on cars are black." "No, they're not, whatever." So he's owning all these common sense positions, and they're putting themselves in this stupid, ludicrous hole that they can't possibly defend. The only way they can defend it is to cancel you for saying anything. The only defense they have for arguing that the sky is blue is to say, don't look up. If you do, you're going to jail. And you can't talk about it if the sky is blue, because you're going to go to jail. We're going to cancel you, whatever, because the sky is obviously orange. Because Trump took the position when they said we're going to abandon the common sense position because they're Marxists, that no one ever wants these positions. He said, "Fine, I'll take it. I'll take the mill. I'll take the people who were in West Virginia. West Virginia's always been Republican for the last few cycles. But let's say Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, the coal miners. When Hillary says we're going to, jack up the coal miners, or the people in Ohio, or the people in Iowa, who is now Trump's up by 18 in Iowa. 18 in Iowa. I remember when Iowa was like, blue all the way. And so those states, man, I mean, Trump was like, "Do you guys want to lose?" Anyway, so that's that. So let's go back into this whole thing with the convention. By them not doing that, and that RFK coming in saying, "Look, guys, we'll take these guys. We'll take these positions. We'll take the middle American people who've been disenfranchised, not only from the blue collar stuff, because that's what Trump was doing. Trump was getting white, blue collar, Democrats who've been disenfranchised because they were considered racist, they were considered, homophobes in many cases, and they were considered, staying in the way of progress because illegals have to come in, and we need to make way for this new group of people coming in. You guys are just old. We don't care about you. And besides, you're going to vote for us anyway. And that's the arrogance. Hillary thought that they were going to vote for her anyway. After ignoring them for 8 years, that they're just going to just vote for them anyway. Well, they didn't. And when Trump came in, dude, it was on. And so, and Robert, and the difference is Robert F. Kennedy is it's a different kind of coalition now. It's not just the blue collar worker now. It is the people who are disenfranchised through their liberties being taken from them in one of those 4 categories: food, medical, political, or financial. That's pretty much the whole country. And if this plays out the right way, he'll take every single state that's on there that's not dark blue. Maybe not New York. But that ties in deeply into who we are as people. And that's what liberals don't understand. They don't understand that we are created in the image of God. We have the Statue of Liberty yearning to breathe free. There's an inner yearning to be free. There's an inner soul in us to serve and worship God. We may not know it. We may not agree with that, but it's there. Romans 1. Nevertheless, that manifests itself in a way that we want to have independent freedom. You go anywhere around the world, there's going to be some kind of uprising, unless there's massive suppression, like North Korea. North Korea, it's so depraved there. It's so closed. That's very difficult. But if there's any kind of inkling, of any kind of crack in there, of any kind of idea, that's going to be a spark for something, which is why in Great Britain, they're letting people, is it Great Britain? I won't say this wrong. Somewhere in Europe, I think it's Great Britain, because of these riots that were happening in these various areas of Great Britain. The people that were causing the riots and destroying stuff were going to be let out of prison and be replaced with the people who were on Facebook or Twitter or X and sharing a video of the riots. You saw what happened in France a couple years ago. That uprising that went on. It went all over the world. Those feeds were shut down here in America. I believe it was even Iran had an uprising a while back. It's just what happens with people. But the thing is, what I said earlier in this particular episode was that we have the framework to fix it. We have a constitution that's based on individual liberties. It's right there in paper, black and white. And we have the Federalist Papers to back that up for the original intent. We had the Bill of Rights, which, by the way, was the Bill of Rights good or was it not good? I think Madison actually didn't want the Bill of Rights because he thought if you limit it to 10, it gives you the assumption that there are only 10. So he was saying we shouldn't have them at all. He argued that, which is interesting way of looking at it. But the point is that that spirit of freedom is there, and that's one thing that this new coalition, this new, I don't know what we call it, MAGA plus one, I don't know what we call it, but it taps into everything I can think about right now that any American, if they really sat down and thought about it, would want. And one thing that RF Kennedy Jr., what he said was that something to the effect of they're attacking our kids. This guy is a great framer of arguments. He is a master at framing stuff. In fact, his ad, the Super Bowl ad, if you saw it, it was really, really good. It was a Kennedy ad from 1960, I believe. Kennedy. It was the exact same ad, but instead of his uncle's face being in the picture, it was his face in the picture. Or it may have been his father. I don't know which ad it was. It was maybe his father, but he replaced whoever was there, either his dad or his uncle was in there. He put his own face on there and played the ad. Brilliant. So, okay, let's keep going. Pennsylvania, I think they had us winning by 5. So And the way they quantify that is if you look at Virginia is like 2 points right now within the margin of error. And Virginia has what you call, NOVA, right? It's Northern Virginia, bunch of government workers. I'm from that area. I was born and raised in D.C. I worked in Arlington, Alexandria. And you have a bunch of cushy government contract workers coming in from the district or working there directly. Fairfax, all that area. Highly democratic, highly educated. And so it overwhelmed the rural Virginia, which Virginia was red for many, many years. I think Bush won Virginia, W. After that, I think Obama won it. We haven't gotten it back since. So, with Virginia being that close, it's a bellwether type state. So the argument is this here, and they go way more detailed than I can. The argument is this, is that if Virginia is just 2, which they have us minus 2 there, then of a state that has so many Democrats, if we're that close in Virginia, we're going to carry everything. Because that's how it works. You don't carry, let's say, you don't carry, that's a good example here. You don't lose South Carolina and win North Carolina. They're too close together, typically, because the ideologies are similar. The shared experiences. There's some things that are different because of state laws, and that's a big thing because state laws do affect electorate. So if you have a strong gun policy in one state, then a law might not affect you how you vote because you don't care, because my state's fine. But in another state, it would be a problem. So you would vote differently because you're a single issue voter. So it varies. So Pennsylvania +5. And let me see if I have it here. And by the way, that is above the margin of error and above the margin of fraud. And another thing about Pennsylvania, it has that same demographic in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh area, under 50, young, working class, urban area, either Hispanic or Black, and you're disenfranchised because of what's going on. And that's also an RFK impact as well, because he'll bring those people over to us more than likely. In fact, I think they had a poll that came out and they showed it in the podcast. They went out and asked people. This is before RFK actually announced. They said if he were to drop out, he's asking the people who were undecided, the people who were RFK voters anyway. They were in his vote. And by the way, he has a ceiling of 50 million people that could vote for him. That's a lot of people. And they said 41% said we'll vote for Trump. 20% roughly said we'll vote for Kamala. And the rest said they vote for who we don't know or don't care or won't vote. So 41% is a good number. And that would tack on to any swing state that's close enough to push them over the top. If not the margin of error, maybe even so the margin of fraud as well. West Virginia, I love West Virginia. And I like talking about West Virginia. West Virginia and Oklahoma, I checked this. The only 2 states in the country that every single county voted for one candidate. So whoever won West Virginia or Oklahoma in both 16 and 20, every single county voted for one candidate. Of course, it was Trump. The Democrats don't have anything close to that. Those are the 2 most Republican states we have, other than Wyoming. So anyway, West Virginia, 45 plus 45 for us there. Virginia -2, I mentioned that. So let me go here. North Carolina, where I am. And by the way, if you see any poll that has North Carolina anywhere close to the margin of error, anywhere close to 1 or 2 or losing, take the poll, ball it up, tear it up, take it out in your backyard, in your fire pit, and set it ablaze. That's a poll you can't trust. Trump is not going to lose North Carolina. There's no way. I'm here. I know this state. I knew Romney wasn't going to lose North Carolina. I was like, Romney was getting drugged in 2012. Drug. But I knew he wasn't going to lose North Carolina. So North Carolina by 9. That's going to be something they're going to call before 8 o'clock probably. South Carolina 16. What state is this? I can't read that. Oh, Texas. Oh boy. Every year they want to say Texas is going to be, it could go blue. It could go blue. Texas could go plus 12. Texas is 12, and especially now what the governor did there, he basically scrubbed over 1 million votes off the voter rolls. So yeah, that's not going to happen. Arkansas, he mentioned Arkansas, but they went into a tangent, so I didn't get that number. He never actually said it in the podcast. So I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's red. Tennessee plus 30, Kentucky plus 20. Let's go here. Missouri plus 22. Is that right? Let's go with that. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Mississippi. Sorry. Mississippi plus 22. And they were actually worried about Mississippi 10 years from now because they're worried about a certain demographic change there that if not put in check, it could be a problem. And basically, I think there's a lot of establishment Republicans in Mississippi, a lot of Nikki Haley type people. And if we don't continue to push forth the MAGA plus one agenda and hit it home, we could lose them because the establishment types, that's the thing. And by the way, before I say any further, let's talk about this really quickly. That this is no longer an election. And this is why I don't mind bringing on Tulsi Gabbard, a liberal. I don't mind bringing on RFK Jr., a liberal. I don't mind bringing on Tucker Carlson, not a liberal, but he's fine. I don't mind bringing these people on, Elon Musk, those kind of guys. Because when you're talking about pre-feudalism or new feudalism, the term they're calling it, going back pre-Magna Carta, it's no longer left and right. It's no longer, Democrat, Republican. It's no longer liberal, conservative. No, it's oligarchs and regular people. It's the elite and regular people, the working class citizen. It's the bureaucrats who are trying to put their fingers on the scales. They're trying to do everything they can do to keep us in our area. Just do your work. Give me your taxes so I can live a good life. And don't piss me off with what you say, think, or do. Get out of my way. You can have your little football. Well, maybe not football. Football's too violent. We'll give you a sport that you can like. Maybe frisbee. Well, frisbee could be a problem too because it could hit you in the eye. You can lose an eye with a frisbee. Maybe you can do nothing at all. Maybe play video games at home as long as it's not too violent. You know what, guys? Maybe you can do nothing at all but sit in a chair all day and go to work and come back home. That would be perfect for us. As long as you can, and don't think while you're at it, and don't read any books, nothing. I mean, I know I'm being silly here, but that's to logical conclusion, taking everything to a logical conclusion. Look at North Korea. And that's now. Or look at the French Revolution. If you haven't studied a part in history, you got to study the French Revolution. How everyone turned on each other. It was paranoia. It was bloodshed in the streets. People were saying they were so worried about being called out and being thrown into the guillotine because they weren't loyal enough, or they were religious because they were trying to make everything secular humanist. They were trying to make everything to a what's the word I'm looking for here? It begins with R. Oh gosh, it's the word. Thomas Jefferson was big on this, but anyway, they were looking at this style of life, and it was no God, nothing, and they basically almost destroyed themselves. If it wasn't for Napoleon, they would have destroyed themselves. So anyway, but that's the French Revolution is leftism gone ultimately haywire, ridiculous, and that's what ultimately that's where we're headed. And so it's no longer left or right, red or blue, liberal or conservative. It's this way. It's a top-down way, which is why we can come together in these coalitions, because that's why this medical freedom, this 1776 law survey center, 1776 law center survey was so effective and so timely. This probably wouldn't have worked in 2016. It wouldn't have worked. The blue collar thing was fine. But because of the pandemic and what people saw, and I think Trump losing was probably, I'm hoping to say this a year from now, was a good thing, because if we come out on the other side of this, Trump's in the White House, and we have let's say RFK in a position where he's actually going after these people in the swamp, and trying to get things back from a civil liberties situation. Clarence Thomas can retire finally, put someone really good in there. Alito can maybe retire, put someone really good and young in there. And so get some more judges, because just appellate court judges, which basically bailed Trump out many times. His own judges he put in, and I gotta give Mitch McConnell some credit. He was a jerk and he was a swamp, but he pushed those judges through because he forced the Democrats who refused to come to session, because you had to have a quorum to get these votes. He kept the session open so much longer as Speaker of the House that he ended up forcing Democrats to the call to actually have to vote for these particular appellate court judges and district court judges and so forth. So Mitch McConnell, he did a good job there. That's about it for him. But that's what we need. We need more of that. And quite frankly, if I were going to tangent here, we need Trump till 2028. We need J.D. Vance to 2032 and 2038. Is that right? No, 2 plus 6. Yeah, 6. And then I think 12 years of a contiguous MAGA first agenda. I think in 12 years, this could really start to turn around. I mean, really fundamentally turn around, because you can't just have Trump come in and do executive policies or executive orders, because what's going to be happening is just going to be reverted back just like it did before. We need fundamental ground stroking change at this base level. I mean, a total reckoning needs to happen in DC, a total reckoning. And with that, and just say, and do what J.D. Vance said. J.D. Vance appears to me to be the guy who has the political will. He said, this is what he said in this interview too. He said, I didn't mention this, but he said, Trump should fire 85% of the bureaucrats in DC. And then what they're going to do is they're going to sue him. And then J.D. Vance, this is what made me be a big fan of his. He said, after they sue him, Trump should pull Andrew Jackson and tell Taney, who was the Supreme Court justice back then, when I think it was the whole the Migration Act, I believe the Native Americans Relocation Act, I believe that's what it was. I may be wrong, but it doesn't matter. The principle is the same. The Supreme Court ruled against the president, and Jackson said, "Okay, you made your ruling. Now try and enforce it." J.D. Vance said the same thing. That's gangster. He's got some gangster mentality on his staff now, and I'm loving it. And he didn't have that before. He had weak establishment people, and he was trying to go in there and try and be the olive branch guy. He was saying, you know what? I'm new to Washington. Why not extend the olive branch to my political, I don't say necessary enemies, but they didn't necessarily see eye to eye. Let's bring them in anyway. But unfortunately for Trump, they're not like Trump's cabinet. They weren't like Lincoln's cabinet, where he actually totally got a team of rivals, people who hated him, like Stewart, couldn't stand Lincoln, or Chase. I think Chase was, he's on cabinet. Secretary of War, can't remember his name. He hated him too. But that person, I can't remember his name right now. He was the guy who actually said, or was said to have said, now he belongs to the ages, in terms of after he was assassinated. So Lincoln turned his cabinet, who were adversaries prior to, into a serious force. And I think Trump wanted to do the same thing, but it didn't work out. So anyways, that's that. So let's get back to this. That That was North Carolina, Georgia. Yeah, Georgia, +7. Let's go to there. Now, Georgia, another thing about Georgia is +7 really should be more like that. We'll keep it this color. In South Carolina, by the way, 16. All right, so Georgia, they were basically saying the same thing with Atlanta. These areas, urban areas with these young kids who are disenfranchised and don't go to church, but they working class, under 50, and all that. I've said that like a broken record. That comes into play, but also the election integrity laws that have been in place in Georgia now that they're now being sued for by the Democrats, of course. Georgia by 7, and Georgia was always sort of never really in the ballpark at the beginning of the cycle anyway. So that's that. Florida, they always trying to say, well, Florida's going to be something we can win too. No, Florida's going to go early as well. DeSantis, I mean, it's not going to happen. It's not even close. And don't even talk about Dade County or Broward County, him winning by 30. No, people down there love Trump. It's not going to be that. And the Cubans down there love Trump. The blacks, Hispanics, a bigger population of black men like Trump, and so that's going to be an impact. And I'll also be remiss to mention that about black females. Trump doubled the black female vote in 2020, doubled it. No one talks about that. I mean, it was like 6%, but it was like 3% before. So, that's huge. And so I think the black men hopefully can affect the black women, and hopefully that number will come up. And I'm seeing a lot more black women. In fact, I was at a Trump rally, and this is anecdotal. There's no data behind this. But I was at a rally for Trump last week, and no, I wasn't. No, I was at a rally. I was at a rally, but no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I was out doing some outreach this past Sunday, and I had a sign that said, "Make men again." It's for my church. So I had this sign, looked like "Make America Great Again," but it was red, white, and blue, but it said "Make men again." And I got 3 or 4 black women just honked on, "Yeah, brother, yeah, brother, yeah, brother." So it's anecdotal, but if you scale that out of the number of cars that came by, we were there for over an hour, so hundreds and hundreds of cars of that percentage. If you scale that up, you can do analysis there. So that could be a little indicator. Who knows? We'll see. Maybe he'll do better with black females too. Alabama +30, Mississippi 22. I mentioned that already. Louisiana, he did mention this. Louisiana, they were saying it was a very, very populist state that they like the populist candidate. So 27, Louisiana. Missouri 22, Kansas 21, Oklahoma 35, Indiana 22, Utah 25. That's the Indiana yet? Oh yeah, this is North Dakota and South Dakota. So North Dakota 35. No, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what this one is actually. I'll come back to that at the end. North Dakota 40, South Dakota 30, Montana 32, and Tester, who's out there, he's going to lose. And this is making me upset. All right, we'll just leave that one alone. Colorado, unfortunately, Wyoming 48. That's the biggest margin. Colorado is going to go, probably going to go to Kamala. New Mexico, they have New Mexico going at -4. I tried to make that a little later, but that's about what it is there. It was interesting about New Mexico. I'm learning about these states, so they're talking about. I'll tell you what they told us on the podcast. Is that New Mexico is like old Mexico? They're saying it's got not a lot of immigration. Let me put it this way: the Mexican Americans that are there they're originalists. They've been there for a long time. In other words, there's not a high immigration population there, and it's probably because they only share a small border with Mexico, whereas Arizona shares the entire southern border. I just thought about that actually. That's probably part of the reason why. Who knows? But and I think they were also saying about New Mexico is that it is. Oh, I just forget what they were talking about, but it's a special state that's just like of itself, and it thinks of itself pretty highly, and they are just have that democratic mindset. So, unfortunately, that probably will also go in that direction. I think Nevada +5 there, which is good. Arizona +6. Probably should be at one more color over. And Arizona, Maricopa County in the same, and they basically talk about, let's talk about Nevada, let's talk about Arizona. They kind of go together. Clark County in Nevada, which that's the Vegas. And this is interesting. This is an interesting tidbit. So Robert Barnes is from Las Vegas. And he says that in Las Vegas, as you can imagine, there are a lot of waiters and service workers there, a lot of service industry there. And the culture out there is if you don't tip, you may find yourself buried in the middle of the desert somewhere. It's frowned upon about tips in this area. This is coming from a person who lives there. And so that's what they suspect, that Kamala Harris, this is all hearsay, but the thought is that Clark County, there's some kind of poll that Kamala found out that, oh, I'm tied or losing in Clark County in Nevada. How about no tax for tips? And they think that's where that came from. She had to do that. Otherwise, you can cancel that there. And that pretty much goes hand in hand with Arizona in terms of what you think with Maricopa County. And Arizona also has, I was out in Arizona 2020. It's actually a pretty, it's McCain country, number one. Everything's named McCain out there. McCain Freeway, McCain Highway, this and that. So anyway, but it was nice. But they're very establishment out there. But they've made a lot of inroads with election integrity laws. And I think Nevada, according to these guys, as we speak now, should be pretty safe. Getting down to the wire here on the West Coast. I'm trying to figure what that state was. It might have been Montana. It might have been Montana, 35. Nope, that was 32. Oh, well. Oh, well. Anyway, so let's look at these states up here. Oregon, Washington, and California. So Oregon, we're looking at 8 or 9 losing by, which is pretty close for Oregon. And Washington, -10. That's pretty solidly blue there. And California will lose that by 25, which still is not that bad considering. I think California could probably go red in about 20 years. Yep, I think it could go red in 20 years. Just based on people moving out and just what we're seeing, but we can also see Mississippi go blue. We could see, this whole thing's going to change. I mean, if you go back and look at the way the maps are, you can see the maps just change. Like Nixon won the entire Sun Belt in the South, basically won everything, pretty much, most part. But the entire South was pretty much Democrat, all blue down there. Kennedy, that election was all blue, but because people were tired of, I'm getting off tangent here, but the reason why it switched over very easily is because people were coming in from the north. They were upwardly mobile. They were like, yeah, let's go to the south and let's make some inroads. And people like Buchanan and Nixon had a policy called the Southern Strategy, which was a policy to say, hey guys, I know it's the South. I know it's Democrat. I know we have a perception of us being racist, but we're not. We can do the right thing as Republicans. We can stand for individual liberties, upper mobility, and those commies across the water who are pointing nuclear weapons at us. We can also deal with them too. And so the Cold War, the threat of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and all that stuff happening, people were looking at race a little bit less back then because they were more worried about those things because race was kind of dying on the vine. And I actually have a really good video of Atwater, who was a consultant with Reagan, and he was charged with saying the N-word like 6 times in a row in a particular speech, but it was off the record. And I got the whole thing there. And they point that to say Reagan was a racist because Atwater said this thing and that he mentioned Southern Strategy. But I break the whole thing down over an hour. I take the entire audio. It's grainy and hard to hear. I go through every single thing. And I even proved in Wikipedia where they lied about it, misquoted it. You can go back to the Wayback Machine and prove it was a lie. How they said it. They worded it in such a way to make it look like he was a racist, but he wasn't. He was saying people might say that it's inward, but that's not what it was out of context, 100% out of context. And so they never give the full clip in context. Otherwise, you would see he was talking about even before that how the southern states were already giving up on the whole on the whole racism thing because we were living together and we were getting over it and getting through it. It was dying on the vine. He said it was, even Buchanan himself said, we're going to have a southern strategy, and that the George Wallaces, Democrats, whatever, let them screw around with this. The what's the guy's name? The sheriff guy. Can't remember his name. Bull Connor. Those guys. Let those guys do it, and they're gonna basically be ignored in history as out of touch, because our strategy of inclusiveness, upper mobility, national defense, and prosperity in general was what was driving the migration from a Democrat South to a agrarian still, but Republican, less racist South. And if you notice early on, it wasn't the Alabamas that were going over. It wasn't the Mississippis that were going over. It was the Sun Belt. It was the Floridas, the Georgias, all the way down to Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma. It was skirting through there, and then it ended up going up north through that. So anyway, I got off subject here a little bit, but I wanted to just mention that because that is something that's interesting to know when it comes down to those states. So, and how the realignments are happening. And realignments are happening now big time. Whereas we're going to see the northern states turn blue. We already seen that, actually. And if we're not careful, let me turn North Carolina blue, red again. And so until we do that, if we're not careful, we can allow states that we shouldn't lose turn blue. I think they're probably going to be relegated to the coasts and so forth. That's kind of like where the liberals like to be. But this right now is where it's looking. Let's go up to Wisconsin and Michigan in this video. Minnesota, I think they were talking about losing by 2 because of the Walls factor. That may have sealed the deal there, and the fact that they're pretty underhanded up in Minnesota. They do things that are kind of cruddy. So that's that factor there as well. That's well below the margin of fraud. So that's not going to probably work for us there. And let's go to Wisconsin and Michigan. I think that's going to be it. So Wisconsin, looking at a +6 there. And in Michigan, they have a +4 here, which I don't see. Based on the new information now, with they're probably basing it on Virginia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin being the way they are, if you factor in the RFK factor. Now, I'll be curious what they say next week when they talk about how he will still be on the ballot. That will definitely come down. They'll probably be +1 maybe. So I'll just, for lack of not knowing, I'll give them at a +1 here. And if we look at the electoral college here, we're looking at Trump at 318 and the Democrats at 220 for the final electoral college. So, and it could be much worse for them because Virginia could fall, and Minnesota could fall. So I think personally, this is my opinion, not their opinion. I think Trump probably maxes out here. I don't see him winning either of the states other than this. I think that's going to be maybe New Jersey. I mean, if things really go crazy for them, New Jersey as well. But that's probably unlikely. So I've gone through everything I had to say. I think I covered everything. And I recommend you guys go out to the People's Pundit. I will go out here. I think I'm on YouTube and Facebook. I'll go out here and paste in the links to this stuff if I can remember it all. And that way you can go check it out for yourself. But again, if you go to that link there, that should give you everything you need to know. And you should be able to see all that. And I'll say one more thing, guys. One more thing as a plug for myself is that if you want to know about this country and about actually, I did that wrong, guys. That's the wrong link, by the way. I'm sorry, that's actually the wrong link. I apologize there. So that's all right. So this link here is this. So if you went there, I apologize. I'm not trying to bait and switch you. I promise. I didn't mean to do that. So let me go here and show you this real quickly. And because that's not right. Come back here. Okay, see ya, Granny Shrek. Hey, Naomi. So this here, just so you guys know, I didn't mean to have this up there the whole time. I meant to have the link to my locals, not that. So I apologize. So, but I'll cover this first, and I'll give the link to that. So this Thursday, I'm offering a free class. This is through the Patriot Academy. This is a class. Essentially, it's 8 weeks long. It's all virtual. You end up getting yourself a virtual handbook. And what we'll do is we'll talk about the foundation of this country and how the founding fathers looked at it in terms of its biblical framework. They go through the entire Constitution, but most of it. Talk about the Constitution as amended, meaning the law was then, but how is it now after it's been amended? So it's how it is today. And they give you that as well. That's in there as well. And so I recommend you check that out. So if you go to that link there, you can sign up here for free, and we'll start this Thursday at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. Now that I bait and switched you, let me go to the locals and show you that real quickly. So this is let's see, you guys can see that. Okay, so this is the locals channel, and so here you'll see this is the biblical citizenship. You can see I did a video of myself. Hey guys, so are you like looking at the news? You can watch that video. I explain it and show you the a little promo about that. But anyway, here's this article here. It's called "The Survey That Transformed MAGA: Ushering in a New Political Freedom." That's a really good article that we wrote. And then there's another one here. That's a movie review we did this week. And then we have bookmarks that I go through. If I see a polling data, I'll actually put a clip in the link and actually go right to it so that you can actually go to that point that was referenced. So the things that I mentioned here, you can go to there, like the Democrats' low turnout, the 440 million. This is where they cited the low propensity voters. You can go to that link there. That's where they talk about it. It's a bookmark inside this podcast. Michigan's internal polling actually had Trump up by 1 in Michigan. And so this podcast is amazing. It's like 2.5 hours long every week. So I really like it. I also follow Rasmussen. I follow Trafficker Group, Larry Schweikart, those guys, Red Eagle Politics. He's another good one. There's another one here. Trump holds a strong lead post DNC. No bounce for Kamala. Going to all that. Here are the numbers here. We just try and give analytics and data behind what we say. It's not just talking out of our butts. It's actual real stuff, and it's basically articulating what these people are saying. We're taking what they're saying and we're putting it in print form with the actual charts and links to back it all up. That's kind of how I like doing it, because I don't want anyone taking my word for anything. So take a look at that. And here's another that's interesting, that Conway West, the pro-Palestinian group, has been taken to court by the Democrats. He's a black man, the blackest man you can think of, the most pro-black guy you can think of. But he doesn't like Kamala Harris because of her policies. And so he's running as independent, and they're trying to take him off the ballots and suing him and everything. So now the judge says in Michigan that you're going to, hold on a second, guys. Hold on. I don't want to sound like Robert F. Kennedy. So they're trying to take him off the ballot. But the judge in Michigan said, nope, he's got to be on the ballot. So, and that's probably another reason why they gave Michigan +4. You factor in the Conway West, you factor in the RFK factor and everything else, Virginia. I can see why they come up with a 4, but I think they'll probably come down to a 2 or a 1 with him being on the ballot, because that's going to take votes away. It just is, unfortunately. And keep coming down. This is a good article here. Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. A New Hope, RFK backs Trump in historic move. This is good because it actually talks about how this unlikely alliance that's happening and how the realignment is happening and how it's just a nightmare scenario for the Democrats, and how they were able to pull it off was very, very was really good. They took away all of the thunder from her campaign speech and so forth. So anyway, enough of that plugging stuff. So just that's what we have out there, guys. And I will wrap this thing up. I'll see if there's any other comments out here. We've been going for about 2 hours. Wow. All right, so let's go through some of this here. And I want to thank everyone for coming on. Hamish Quayle said, mentioning Trump 271 times. That's right. Listening and watching on and off. That was Granny Shrek. She had to leave. He had to leave. Thank you for the show, Chuck Raycraft. I put this on the screen here. Why are the states that seem to struggle the most from the current admin voting for? Anybody who can answer that question is going to be a millionaire. Which is one of the reasons why I'm offering this class. It's not just me; it's through the Patriot, to Wall Builders and to the Patriot Academy, and these classes are going all over the country. But they are what they're for is to educate people so that we can be not just at worst case or at best case or worst case, low propensity voters, people who vote Republican but just vote whenever, and definitely not people who this gentleman just said or this woman just said vote for more of the same. I think part of it is because we're not educated. We don't have critical thinking skills anymore. We're not taught that anymore. We're taught to be doers instead of thinkers and be critical about our government. We saw that in the 60s. Well, I didn't see. I was not old enough, but the Democrats back then were anti-establishment. They were anti-government. They were anti-this. They were, anti-war. Now it's like, they're the opposite. They're warmongers. They're, they want, Kamala, I believe she said, I may be wrong here. If I'm wrong, please tell me. I think, well, let me say this. Something to the effect that they're looking to use the power of the military to interject in some part of the world. I don't know what it is. I'm saying it off the top of my head. But if she didn't say it, that's the mindset of these neocons, these people who want to use the military industrial complex to their advantage to enrich themselves. So the people that vote for the more of the same are stuck on the bread and circus scenario, where it's the whole Roman thing where to keep the people from rioting, they would give them games and give them food. If you give them food, entertainment, the people won't uprise. Just give them enough, give them the bread, give them the circuses, give them the football, give them the McDonald's, and they're happy. So that's part of the reason. Another reason is because people don't think critically. Another reason is because people don't see the imminent threat to their own personal liberties. It's gradually eroding. And it's like the frog in the pot of water, turn up slowly. By the time it realizes it's too hot, it's dead. I think a lot of that comes into play, but that's a really good question. Some are coming around, and a lot of it's misinformation too, because Black people in general, they think every Republican has a Ku Klux Klan hood and uniform in their closet. At least they did. That's coming around some. And one thing they did mention in the podcast was that generationally speaking, eventually the generations move away from the prior generation eventually. For instance, Cuban Americans are becoming more, because they haven't been affected by the Castro element so much, the grandkids so much now are looking at it differently. A lot of the Asian Americans who are in Nevada aren't looking at it like, the Cultural Revolution, Mao in China, because they're too young to know that kind of stuff. And so they're looking at much different, and that's Nevada, I think, as well. No, that maybe, I don't remember what state that was, but, and so generationally speaking, it changes. And so what I think Trump has, and what's so exciting, is that with this new MAGA plus one coalition, which, by the way, the MAGA coalition could have gone downhill pretty quickly without this Robert F. Kennedy factor, can take the MAGA plus one into the next 30, 40 years. And this generation coming up now, especially boys, are the most conservative boys this country has ever seen, probably going back since the Reagan Revolution. And that's coming from Charlie Kirk, and he would know, being over a turning point. Okay. So that's a really good question there. Naomi says, first time here, fascinating to hear. First time here, sounds like truth to me. I'm trying. I don't want to be hold me accountable to the fire. If I'm saying anything wrong, let me know. I try and document as much as I can. I put the whole podcast in there. So when you hear the podcast, you'll say, oh yeah, he said that. Oh yeah. I'm basically regurgitating what they said and interjecting my own sort of opinion there. So I'm actually also reacting to the podcast from memory and from my notes. And good show, she said, gotta go, or he said, you gotta go. And with that, that is it. One more thing, one more plug, because we're still working through monetization here on YouTube. We had a little problem there. I think we're growing too fast and didn't like it. Like I said, at one point in time, we were one of the fastest growing YouTube channels in the country. I have proof to back that up. We were at a B minus rating at Social Blade. We literally got 100,000 subscribers in like 2 months. Totally ridiculous. I have my unboxing actually for my play button. 100,000. That happened in November. I think we hit 200,000 in January. We were rolling. And YouTube was like, yeah, let's put a halt to that. So if you can support us on Locals, please, by all means, go to that link there. And you can support me. There's no minimum. So you can do whatever and that can support us, or just do it for free. And we'll put articles out there. And at some point in time, what I'm going to do is, for people who are paid members, I'm going to be doing anecdotal stories about my own life, coming up from a Black radical leftist in DC, liberal to become a conservative. Talk about my walkaway story there. I got a special thing going on there as well. History things. I do tours at Gettysburg, stories there. And also the biblical citizenship class in Modern America, I'll be doing a reaction to that every week as well. That content would be out there as well. Kind of off channel, but more stuff for people who are interested in supporting us. And that'd be helpful. We'll get the monetization back in YouTube if they want to. Maybe they won't cover our content, but we'll continue to grow here, and we'll fan out in Rumble, Locals, and everywhere else. So that will be something we are looking to do. All right, guys. So, and gals, thank you so much for your time here. I love you guys for hanging out with me. And that's it. So more stuff tomorrow, maybe an article out tomorrow, maybe another short tomorrow as well. And with that, send me an email at questions@theconservativetake.com. That's questions@theconservativetake.com. And I will answer those questions when they come in. All right. Everybody have a blessed evening, and I'll see everybody in the next one.